What they can do specifically is they can apply pressure on their elected representatives, and they can do something that's happening in the States right now here in Canada, or they can support people that have these initiatives. And what's happening in the States right now is a majority of states are declaring sovereignty, and under the 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. It's not being played up much in the mainstream media, it's not being played up much in Canadian media, it's not even being played up much in activist circles. But American states are declaring their right to sovereignty under the 10th Amendment. And they are drafting bills that say things like, if the U.S. federal government declares martial law, all the soldiers who are from this state will report back and serve under the governor as part of the state National Guard until a new president is chosen.
Before there was ever a federal government, there were sovereign individual states. The Constitution very, very clearly recognizes that we are a republic. The 10th Amendment that says we are a sovereign state first of all. Federal government, do not any longer tell us or entice us to go in a direction for which we cannot afford to go, nor properly should go. So I, in addition to many other legislators across the country, are introducing resolutions whereby we are encouraging our legislatures to pass and adopt that resolution, which simply restates what is in the Constitution in the form of the 10th Amendment.
You actually have drawn up a resolution because you and others like you say that the federal government is overstepping its bounds. Can you explain?
We have a resolution that says, thus far, no farther. It's a line in the sand to tell the federal government that they are no longer allowed to transgress the Constitution, and if they do, then they're nullifying the Constitution. The issues at hand are things like declaring martial law or a state of emergency without the consent of that state's government. Further encroachments on our right to bear arms, like the Holt bill that's been folded into the stimulus package. Involuntary servitude of those, between 18 and 24. These are issues that are non-negotiable. We're not bound by unlimited submission to the general government by a compact, the Constitution. But if the general government nullifies the Constitution, how do you withdraw from something that doesn't exist?
How many states have this resolution based on Jefferson and Madison pending in legislatures all across the country?
Last week there were 8 states, including ours, with some sort of sovereignty resolution. This week there are 20, so there's an additional 12 in the last week.
Unbelievable. That's truly unbelievable.
Dan, it's just caught fire across the nation.
I bet it has, for good reason.
There are hundreds of elected officials to work on in this country at the federal, provincial, and municipal levels. You can go to them with a group of people and say, we want the fluoride out. Here's our evidence. What do you think? You can have a petition in your local neighborhood where you say, look, we've looked into this. The 10, 15, 20 of us in this neighborhood have looked into this, and we just need your help convincing our city councilor to look at this DVD. You can have a copy of it too, so we're all judging the same thing. And then the people in your neighborhood can see it, and they can say, yeah, of course the city councilor should watch this, and of course the city councilor should vote against this. And you can have all sorts of incremental changes at the grassroots level. But the idea of just waking people up in more creative ways is not going to work. The idea that we haven't been thinking of more solutions up to this point has been the problem. There should be idea banks full of solutions. Every single region in the world should have people constantly looking at the world around them, at the changes around them, and analyzing it and understanding it. I'm giving you a problem. I'm telling you about the North American Union. I'm telling you about the SPP. But here's what your reaction should be. Why didn't they ask us first? If they were going to do something big, why didn't they ask us first? Why wasn't I told about this? What type of system do we have here where this doesn't happen? And so what activists should do is activists should say, well, I believe that we should go after central banking. And then somebody else says, I think we should go after the health issue. And someone else says North American Union. And someone else says, 9/11 or global warming or any of the myriad number of issues that face us right now. What we should do is we should come up with a plan. We should agree on the best things to hit first, on the things that will appeal to the most people. We should have an open dialectic where all the arguments are heard. And from there, we should constantly be thinking of solutions, because if we don't, there's simply no point in waking people up. And there's simply no point in waking people up to tell them, listen, you can be a relatively isolated, courageous, heroic, noble, and nobly intentioned, but relatively isolated and relatively marginalized member of this society, or you can find ways to reverse engineer fighting against the establishment plans by looking at what people actually are doing in their daily lives and plugging in solutions. You can take the Chinese-Canadian community and you can tie the influence of the Anglo-American establishment and the modern Anglo-American money, particularly American money when it comes to the establishment, back to the opium trade and the skull and bones in the 1800s. And you can build a narrative for the Chinese-Canadian community that takes them from the 1800s to today and shows them the history of the European and American aristocracy when it comes to running the world and taking us to a world that we don't want to go to. And you can focus on developing something just for them, something that not only proves you're smart and proves what you're saying, but makes it easy for them to pass on because they know their friends will be interested in this too. You as an individual can say, I'm going to make an 8.5 by 11 flyer for my neighborhood that basically says, look, I make a combined family income of $120,000 a year. I live in a $275,000 house. I live in this neighborhood. I'm from here, and I'm just going to drop this off in your mailbox once a week. And I think if everybody did this, and you put on there who you are and what your intentions are, you can be semi-anonymous if you want, but you basically say, I live in this neighborhood, and I'm making this statement on behalf of people who are basically me in terms of demographic, irrespective of what roles are assigned for us by the media and by our society. I'm one of you, and I have this information to share. So you can certainly do that as well. There's a million things that any individual can do, but I think more importantly, it's going to have to go neighborhood by neighborhood, block by block, because the only reality that you can believe in consistently is one that you are in and one that you share with someone else. Politicians in Ottawa are not accountable for what's going on in Toronto. Politicians at the federal level, and especially at the international level, are not accountable to local concerns, but you are. So if you take on the responsibility of protecting your neighborhood will judge the value of what you're offering them and its worth to them. And if they support that, then they'll get behind those initiatives. If they don't, then they'll ostracize you, and you'll have to go back to plan B, because the only way this is going to work is neighborhood by neighborhood, block by block, within realities that we share and understand, which is where we live. Ultimately, we're leaders. Ultimately, if I got to India 5 years ago and you just got there, I should be able to show you around. So if I got to this understanding of the world 5 years ago or 10 years ago, then I should be able to make it easy for you to deal with it. I shouldn't be saying do your own research. I shouldn't be leaving you with a pile of homework. I shouldn't be saying believe whatever you want. I should be saying, here, I've worked out the problem so that it's really easy to explain. I've worked out what a logical reaction would be outside of the way we've been indoctrinated. And I've worked out solutions that we can start working on now, so you can take away some of the pressure. So one of the most important things that I can see is getting creative as the solution to repairing your soul if you're damaged by the weight of the world and taking it on. And I see creativity as the way to express how you individually feel about it, how you as a sovereign human being with your own thoughts are reacting to this, and how you're inspiring other people to react to it as individuals. You can still burn DVDs, you can still go to rallies, you can still do everything else, but you have to demonstrate some sort of creativity, which includes both the creativity to come up with ways to solve the problem, or you've got to show some creativity with ways to define the problem. But if you don't show creativity, then you'll get crushed by the problem. Looking at the power, the terrifying power of the global power blocks that are currently centralizing power and formalizing their control over the world, looking at the power of the people that are planning a scientific permanent dictatorship can be scary. So instead of fighting the New World Order, we should help people. Because fighting the New World Order is scary, whereas helping people is rewarding. And helping people will build up your self-worth and self-confidence and build up your value as a unique individual in this society. So I think that we should instead of focusing on how terrifying they are and how advanced they are in their plans and how long they've been planning this and how long they've wanted to do this, I think we should focus on helping people and giving people ways to help people, and that will become addictive, and that will help us deal with the tough economic times that we face, and that will help us get more creative, because we see instead of diagnosing a problem as worse and worse every time we look at it, we'll diagnose a solution as better and better, and from there we'll grow the solution and grow the numbers of people working on it.